Guys, Lightfall is launching here in just a few days, and there's no question that this expansion might be the biggest we have had in terms of gameplay system changes and additions. We've been covering countless blogs as well as TWABs over the past 2 months, plus a number of trailers that keep dropping left and right, and we know a ton about Lightfall and what's changing. We've got Strand and its completely new movement capabilities. The 10-year story that we've been on is finally approaching its climax. The Guardian rank system that's meant to help new players get into the game and give them an understandable way to progress, an accommodation system that we've been waiting for ages now. But arguably the biggest change is the revamped system to our build crafting and mods. This is rolling out in tandem with a loadout system, allowing us to save and share and equip our favorite builds on the go. Now, our video today is going to really center around builds that are looking to be potent next season. And the reason why builds are becoming progressively more important is because, well, quite frankly, Destiny is getting harder. The Bring and Challenge Back to Destiny blog post released this past week. We made a video on it, and overall, across the board, guys, this game is becoming more difficult. And with that level of difficulty increasing, narrowing down the right builds are going to be essential. Now, the builds we're going to be going over today are actually going to be taking advantage of the new surge mechanic next season. Essentially, guys, the burn mechanic is getting split up into 2 categories: threats and surges. Surges will increase the elemental damage you deal by 25% for a specific element, whereas threats increases incoming damage by 25% against a specific element. Now, the reason why this is important is that Bungie mentioned that there's going to be surges that rotate. Strand will be the feature surge for next season. So obviously rocking Strand will be very beneficial when those surges are present. But Solar and Void will also be rotating back and forth each week, dipping into those surges. On top of that, we're also getting a new system called Overcharge, where specific weapons will also get this 25% more damage. By the way, kinetic weapons will also dip into this if you happen to be rocking the subclass matching the surge in that activity. Keep in mind though, surges and overcharge does not stack. Now, Bungie also released Season 20's artifact mods, and let me just say, guys, they are juicy. Like, I know Destiny is getting harder, but at the same time, Bungie's literally giving us mods and ways to combat the increased difficulty of the game. But again, like I said earlier, in order to take advantage of this, you're gonna have to build craft. I felt like before it was kind of optional whether or not you wanted to utilize a build, but in Lightfall, it almost seems like it's gonna be a necessity. Now, before we jump into our actual builds, let's talk about mods real quick. Mods are changing, and they're changing a lot. But for veteran players, it should still feel familiar. The combat style charge with light and elemental wells are actually being combined into a new system called Armor Charge, which works essentially how Charger Light works now. And when you have an Armor Charge mod equipped, you'll be able to gain stacks of Armor Charge. And certain mods will give you the benefits depending on how many stacks you have. And some mods will give you more stacks. Some mods will take away all your stacks while providing you with something in return. Now, this is almost exactly how the current Charger Light mod system works. You also gain stacks of armor charge when you pick up Orbs of Power, and all of this is pretty similar. Most elemental well mods are also being turned into mods that benefit from picking up Orbs of Power, and artifact mods are becoming passive perks instead of physical mods. So everything mod related will be surrounding armor charge and Orbs of Power when it comes to what's being used with our combat style mods. So I know this was a very long-winded intro, but I just wanted to get everybody up to speed before jumping into the builds. First, we're going to start with our hunters. Hunters rejoice. Gyrfalcons is still going to be very strong next season. An obvious choice, but now that we got a confirmation that we're going to have Void surges that rotate, Gyrfalcon's Hawbrick in combination with the Void subclass is extremely deadly, especially if you like going invisible. You pair this with things like Stylish Executioner and a good Void weapon, and you're already making a very powerful build. Now, Gyrfalcons actually gives you free volatile rounds on any Void weapon when coming out of invisibility. And even with ability regeneration getting tuned in Lightfall, Stylish Executioner will make sure that you don't need your dodge to go invisible, as anytime you defeat a debuff target, including volatile targets, you're right back to going invisible. So you're gonna always have that loop of going invis, coming out of invis, getting volatile rounds, killing volatile enemies, making them explode, spreading volatile, and then going back invisible again, over and over. Now, we know Siphon mods aren't going away, so you're gonna be able to generate Orbs of Power via Siphon mods, which will feed right into the new Armor Charge system, allowing you to instantly experiment with new ways to make Gyrfalcon builds even better. On top of all this, we know that Font of Might is being replaced with surge mods for each element, and you're gonna have things like Void Weapon Surge, Solar Weapon Surge, Stasis Weapon Surge, etc. In this case, equip a Void Weapon Surge mod, and you'll get that increase to Void Weapon damage while you have a stack of Armor Charge. Granted though, guys, it's not as much of a buff as Font of Might is. Granted, at the same time, when Void is in rotation for Surge, you're gonna be dealing 25% more damage anyways. No lie, guys, we made a solo build on this earlier this season, and we took advantage of weapons like the Velis X, which is the Ritual Pulse Rifle, but it comes with the perk Repulsor Brace. And this combination with Gyrfalcons is crazy synergy. Matter of fact, if you look in your vault, just look for weapons with Repulsor Brace if you want to take advantage of Gyrfalcons. And you have a lot of options. You've got Ikelos, that hand cannon has it. The Trials hand cannon, Exalted Truth also has it. The SMG from the Duality Dungeon has it. Hell, even the sidearm, Fiortura, if I'm saying that right. But this little Surus sidearm also comes with Repulsor Brace. So again, look through your vaults, see what you got. Gyrfalcons with that trait is fantastic. Now, something I want to mention that's going to tie into this very good, as well as covering all your corners when it comes to dealing with champions, is when we pop on our suppressor grenades in Lightfall. This season, guys, you will be able to stun overload champions with your suppressor grenades. On top of that, volatile rounds will stun barrier champions. So you literally have two ways right here within a single subclass to deal with those champions. Now, one thing that's going to really make sure that this build next season is going to be phenomenal is the new Void Fragment Echo of Cessation, where finisher final blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby enemies to become volatile. Now, defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. Now, void breaches are essentially what void elemental wells used to be, except now they can only be generated via the subclass, and picking them up will only give you class ability energy instead of all ability energy. Keep in mind, it's separate depending on the subclass you're rocking. Now, if this fragment spawns a void breach, every single time you defeat a volatile enemy, you are going to be swimming in void breaches, guys. And class ability energy is going to be constantly coming back here with Gyrfalcons. But this new fragment also ties perfectly into Gyrfalcon's other perk, where finishing a combatant while invisible gives your weapon bonus damage. Are you seeing the stacking capabilities here, guys? You've got Void Surge damage, Void Weapon Surge mods, Gyrfalcons. Oh, and the survivability from Repulsor Brace, and your allies gain a reserve overshield and improved class ability regeneration when you dodge. This also grants you an overshield. But then we look at the Season 20 artifact perks like authorized mods, where it states that Void, where any mods affecting your Void weapons have significantly discounted costs. Or Bricks from Beyond, where Void weapon kills have a chance to spawn heavy ammo for your teammates. Or Void weapon channeling, where you gain a temporary bonus to Void weapon damage after you defeat a target with a Void weapon, while at least one of your Void abilities is fully charged. Now, this damage bonus increases based on the number of fully charged Void abilities that you have. And this damage bonus will stack on top of Void Search, and on top of the Void Weapon Search, and on top of volatile rounds. Trust us, guys. Gyrfalcons, which was already a very good exotic, is going to be substantially nastier in Lightfall. And if you want to check out our previous builds with Gyrfalcon, we've got dim links down below. Keep in mind, though, I'm going to have to curate these builds a little more once Lightfall launches, considering all the mods are going to be changing. That's why I'm kind of going into this in a little more detail, as you're not going to be able to just plug and go with a single dim link, right? Either way it goes, though, Gyrfalcons for my Void Hunters should be very good, especially for the Legendary campaign. Now, next up, I want to talk about the Sentinel Titan. Now, Sentinel has actually become probably my most used subclass in Grandmasters. Listen, I love Lord of Thunder, but when it comes to survivability and keeping your team alive, Sentinel Titan is the best at it. On top of that, the ability spam that you get thanks to Heart of Inmost Light is the best of the best. Like, I'm amazed it didn't get nerfed. Now, even with the ability regeneration reduction that Bungie talked about in their 2 abilities and beyond blog posts, Heart of Inmost Light is still going to reign supreme. Hell, guys, in Lightfall, even more so. Now, fundamentally, this build shouldn't change all that much. If anything, it just gets more potent. And this is actually due to the changes coming with the old elemental well mods. In the Buildcrafting Evolved blog post, Bungie actually states that many mods that previously created elemental wells or gave stacks of charge with light have been converted to instead create an orb of power. So you can think of mods like Elemental Ordnance, Melee Wellmaker, Reaping Wellmaker, etc. Now, they used to generate an elemental well on grenade kills, melee kills, and getting a kill after using your class ability. But now they replace all of those wells with orbs instead. Grenade kills generate orbs. Melee kills generate orbs. And popping your barricade and getting a kill also generates an orb. So Heart of Inmost Light is not only going to be the best way to get your abilities back, but it's also going to be one of the fastest ways to get your super. Because of all the constant uptime with your abilities, this means constant creation of orbs. And this equals to more bubbles for more defensive or damage buff opportunities. Granted, I know bubbles getting a nerf, but utility wise, it's still going to be very good inside of PvE. And the main thing is that this build really utilizes the neutral game to the fullest. You're constantly using your barricade, granting yourself an overshield, as well as your allies. I can't tell you how many times the Bastion aspect saves my life, especially in things like Grandmasters. Now, Bastion not only grants overshield to yourself and nearby allies when you use a barricade, but it also empowers the barricade, enabling it to slowly regen you, as well as your team's overshields. Now, this in combination with Heart of Inmost Light, literally buffing your barricade replicates, as well as your other abilities, and you're constantly comboing these things back and forth. It gets wild. Then once again, we've also got weapon search mods, as well as the void search, which will be rotating weekly. But there's also a new fragment being added that will synergize perfectly with this build. Echo of Vigilance will give you a temporary void overshield when you defeat a target while your shields are depleted, helping you stay alive even more in those dicey situations. You'll be able to tie all of this in with the added ability to slot ability generating mods more freely with the new mod socket system. Now you're going to be able to socket all these mods at the same time with multiple copies of each if you want to make your ability regeneration with this build even more instant. These are not going to be tied to elemental affinities. Things like Bomber, Outreach, Impact Induction, Utility Kickstart, Melee Kickstart, Grenade Kickstart, Invigoration, Installation, Innervation, Hands-On, Ashes to Assets, and Dynamo. Now unless Heart of Inmost Light actually gets a nerf, which we haven't seen yet, this build is going to be meta. I mean, it's pretty much the meta right now. I love the combination of Bastion and Offensive Bulwark though. I feel like I always have my grenades, and my ability uptime is so high with Heart of Inmost Light. So again, guys, if you're interested in this build, I will have a dim link to this one down below as well. Now for my Warlocks. Now look, I hate to sit here and copy and paste essentially what we've already done multiple times, but guys, considering we're gonna have Solar Surge, it should be no surprise to you now. Starclass is still gonna be just as deadly next season, if not more so. Again, this build takes advantage of Starfire Protocol, Empowering Rift, Fusion Grenades, Well of Radiance, and of course, Witherhoard. This creates an endless grenade spam build that burns everything to the ground. And the beautiful thing about this build is that it's such a good mix of both support and attack. Now, the main loop of this build comes solely from the aspects, fragments, and the subclass itself, alongside Starfire Protocol, which grants you a second fusion grenade. On top of that, your fusion grenades recharge from empowered weapon damage, and fusion grenade kills grant rift energy, pretty much topping it off. So essentially, guys, you cast your empowering rift, you throw your grenades, you deal damage while in your rift, which regens your rift energy back, as well as your grenades. And the beautiful thing about Witherhoard is that it deals damage over time, easily granting you back more ability energy. On top of that, guys, next season, kinetics are actually going to be doing more damage inside of PvE. But more so than that, special weapon kinetics are going to be doing even more damage. So even though Witherhoard got nerfed way back when, going into next season, it's going to be dealing more damage. Now, the Touch of Flame aspect makes our fusion grenades even better, as they'll explode twice. You've also got Ember of Blistering, granting you more grenade energy on ignition kills. Ember of Ashes, which increases these scorch stacks that you deal, allowing ignitions to occur more frequently. And Ember of Eruption, which gives those ignitions an increased area of effect. Now, you can actually add in the brand new Ember of Resolve, and you'll get a cure on every single grenade final blow. This will help with the fact that you don't have a healing rift. Also, these solar elemental wells of old are being changed to fire sprites, which when picked up will grant you guessed it, grenade energy. This on top of the 25% more damage with Solar Surge. Add this all in with artifact perks like authorized mods for grenades, reduce the cost of grenade-based perks. This can allow you to essentially contribute as much as you want to grenade-based builds. So essentially, guys, this is a build that just keeps on getting better. Again, dim link down below if you want to check this one out. Although keep in mind, like I've said with all of these builds, it's a good chance dim will probably be down the first day. So at least the base versions of these builds needs to be equipped before Destiny 2 goes down on Monday. Now let's take a moment to actually speculate on some possible good combos and certain mods. Now, keeping with the trend of Warlocks here, I do want to talk about the super nobody currently uses, and that's Daybreak. There is a high chance that this super is going to go from being one of the worst PvE supers in the game to one of the best, and this is due to a variety of changes coming to this class. In Lightfall, we are getting a substantial buff to Daybreak Warlocks. This is going from being one of the worst PvE supers to potentially one of the best. With weekly surges rotating between Void and Solar, Daybreak Warlocks are positioned to have one of the highest damage output builds in the game, even without including the mod changes coming. Base cooldown for Daybreak is being dropped from 1025 to now 916, and super energy cost is being reduced from 10% to now 6.5%. This means you can theoretically go from throwing 10 swords to now 15 in Lightfall. On top of that, it's also going to be doing 25% more damage every single swing, due to Bungie giving it an increase in PvE damage by 25%. But then what if we took this a step further and combined it with the potency of Dawn Chorus? Dawn Chorus's Rites of Ember perk will make your Daybreak projectiles apply Scorch on contact and makes all your Scorch effects deal more damage. Long story short, guys, this means more constant ignitions. You can even throw on fragments like Ember of Combustion so that the final blows with Daybreak immediately cause enemies to ignite. And in Lightfall, this fragment is getting updated to Solar Super Final Blows, will also generate fire sprites, which is an added bonus. Ember of Char and Ember of Eruption so that your ignitions have an increased area of effect and also spread Scorch nearby. ally. And then we pair this with a fragment that we're probably going to see more use of in Lightfall, which is Ember of Wonder. This will generate orbs of power when you rapidly defeat enemies with ignitions. And with those orbs, that will flow right into the armor charge system, allowing us to build craft even more here with our Daybreak. And to take this a step further, if you wanted to add even more Scorch to your build, guys, next season, apply 1000 Voices. 1000 Voices is getting the Solar 3.0 treatment in Lightfall, and each explosion causes 10 Scorch stacks, and 15 if you have Ember of Ashes. What that means is every full burst on a single target will pretty much always guarantee an ignition. This too will synergize with Dawn Course. I'm literally labeling this build as setting the world on fire, because that's exactly what you're going to be able to do here. Now, another Warlock exotic I want to bring up is Felwinter's Helm. This exotic states that power and melee final blows creates a burst of energy that weakens nearby targets. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the radius of the burst and the length of the weakening effect. Now, what the in-game description doesn't tell you is that this burst of energy not only weakens but also blinds enemies, and the burst happens when you perform a finisher on any enemy. We compare this with the new Echo of Cessation fragment, where finisher final blows creates a burst of void damage that causes nearby enemies to become volatile, and defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. So now each finisher you do will cause both weaken, blind, and volatile in a radius around you. You can also make quick escape with something like Echo of Obscurity, which makes you invisible after performing a finisher. This can all be combined with the new finisher mods that no longer require super energy to use and instead require armor charge stacks. No lie, Warlock mains, you should be very excited about next season. Now, as far as other exotics that obviously tie in wonderfully well with solar and void abilities, you got things like Nezarec's Sin, Controverse Hold, Nothing Manacles, Verity's Brow. Actually, Verity's Brow is one we're definitely going to be looking into, as weapon final blows with a damage type matching your subclass energy grants death throws, which provides a grenade damage bonus and grants you grenade energy. So when you have death throws and throw a grenade, nearby allies actually gain greatly increased grenade regeneration for a short time. Now, obviously pairing this with a Demolition Adrenaline Junkie weapon is very good, but imagine this in Solar Surge environments. Your solar grenades will be dealing 25% more damage. But what's really going to be nasty is the Rain of Firebolts artifact perk. That's right, guys. If you have a firebolt grenade equipped, you automatically gain a second charge. Plus, the Flare Up artifact perk enables firebolt grenades to apply more Scorch stacks. And then after damaging a combatant with a firebolt grenade, this spawns a fire sprite near them, which of course feeds into your grenade energy. Solar Surge perk will also allow you to get stacks of armor charge when you pick up a fire sprite. So not only are you going to be dealing massive damage with firebolt grenades thanks to these additions and Verity's Brow, but you're also going to have non-stop grenade energy. Even more energy thanks to the constant fire sprites and endless armor charge to pair with them. And to top everything all off, combine this with the new fragment Ember of Resolve, where solar grenade final blows cure you. No lie, guys, having multiple firebolt grenades next season, that's back-to-back ignitions easily with your neutral game. Pair this with something like Traveler's Chosen, which is going to dip into Osmosis and of course feed back into your abilities, and Verity's Brow. And on top of that, we have anti-barrier sidearms next season. You see where I'm going with this? Now for my Titans. To dip into solar a little more, Titans, you can actually rock a heavy-hitting endless Consecration build, paired once again with none other than Heart of Inmost Light. Throw in Soul Invictus to create sunspots everywhere, which provides you with restoration and even more ability regeneration. Combine that with things like Impact Induction, Invigoration, Bomber mods, and whatever orb version of Melee Wellmaker exists next season, and essentially, guys, you can spam Consecration over and over. This causes a ton of Scorch and ignitions as you go. You got things like Ember of Torches, which will make you radiant every time you use Consecration. Ember of Solace, which makes you radiant and your restoration lasts longer. Ember of Blistering and Searing, which will give you your grenade and melee energy when you cause Scorch and ignitions. This is a great build, guys. It was already good before, but it's only going to be better. And on top of that, Hammer of Soul is receiving the same thing as Daybreak, where it's getting its cooldown drop from 1025 to 916. Now, I do want to briefly touch on some other combinations. If none of these have tickled your fancy, by God, hopefully something here in this final list will. Now, I know back in the day, some of us used to rock Crown Splitter back in Grandmaster Nightfalls. Actually, get ready for the return of swords. That's right, guys. Crown Splitter, Fallen Guillotine, they're going to be back next season. Now, the beautiful thing about both of these swords is they're void. So when paired with volatile rounds, plus the 25% void surge damage, plus the void channeling artifact perk, which increases their damage even more, plus the fact that we have a Column 5 perk that makes them stagger overload champions, guys, we're going to be dealing some massive damage with swords again. You can pair them with strongholds if you're looking to time your blocks to get those heals in, and with volatile flow coming back as an artifact perk, everyone has easy access to it again, not just hunters with Gyrfalcons. So keep that in mind, guys. I know everybody's like, oh my God, the game's getting harder. Dude, we've got some crazy builds coming next season, and by the way, none of this includes what we're getting in Strength. Now, other combinations that are going to be interesting, Assassin's Cowl on Hunter will now provide volatile explosions on finishers, as well as give you health and shields. If you pair it with the new Void Fragment Echo of Cessation. Shards of Galanor, Phoenix Protocol, Doomfang Pauldron, Ursa Furiosa are still good exotics when it comes to insane super uptime, as each of them provide you with super energy. 3 of them actually get you your super back while in your super. And if you get 50% of your super back with something like Phoenix Protocol, just think of all the orb generation that everyone on your fire team will be doing next season. You'll be able to get that other 50% back extremely quickly. Now, Path of Burning Steps is an easy way to passively increase your solar weapon damage. And considering that Sunshot is getting a rework next season and will be applying Scorch, fellas, our old Sunwalker build is only gonna get better. We made this a long time ago. It was Sunshot, Path of Burning Steps, and at the time, Energy Accelerants. But hell, guys, with the rework coming to Sunshot, you don't even need Energy Accelerants. It's already gonna be doing a ton of damage. The Scorch application, the potential for ignitions, and the increased damage from Path of Burning Steps is gonna be deadly. So guys, I hope today's video gave you a little bit of something for every class. I know it seems like we really got focused on like Titans and Warlocks. Personally, guys, the Strand Hunter just looks so good. Something tells me the damage is gonna be insane on that class. And the overall maneuverability and synergy there, I am very tempted to play Hunter day 1 next week in Lightfall. With that being said, starting day 1 on Tuesday, we're gonna be breaking down what we know from fragments and aspects in the game for Strand and kind of giving you some ideas of what to build into if you're looking for Strand specific builds. Like once we get into the game, unlock everything, we'll probably put out a general build for every class, and then we'll really start breaking things down specifically to each one of them. I hope this video helped though, guys. Also, we'll be live pretty much every day until Tuesday and all day Tuesday. I'm excited about the narrative, but I gotta say I am just as hyped, if not even more, for the potential of build crafting in Lightfall. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.